the fair is going to be like. And so we talked about before, now transitioning to during the event. So again, you're going to log in through Access UH. You're going to click the Cougar Pathway icon. You're going to get into Cougar Pathway. One thing that you'll see different now, does anybody notice there's this green bar that says you're attending? And so that will show up once you've completed that attend button and completed your chat profile. So please make sure that that is showing. If not, that will be an indicator that you have not completed that attend process. One of the first things that you're going to want to do is to set your status to online. You will be able to see this as soon as the event pops in or as soon as you log into the event. What I do want to let you know is that the event will become physically live 1 hour before the event. So this event starts at 11 a.m. That means at 10 a.m. you will be able to log into the event. What you cannot do is get into the queue for any of the employers. So that only begins at 11 a.m. And so what that means is at 11 a.m. it's kind of like the doors open and you can kind of run around to wherever you want to. And at that time is where you will go ahead and get in the queue or the line for the employers that you're interested in. So I'm going to share with you what that looks like. You'll be able to click the employer section as I have there, and it's going to pull up, and I apologize, this is a little bit blurry. Because the event's not live, we're not able to actually go in there and look at it, but this gives you a general idea. So again, you'll see where it says Test Virtual Career Fair, it's going to say Class Career Fair, and then we're tagged into the employer section, and so for this example, we're going to call the company Company A. So I've clicked into that company. Company A is going to show a group chat as well as a join queue. So you have two options or two ways to engage with employers. This is really great because let's say you get in line with up to 3 employers and then maybe you're waiting and you're like, what do I do while I'm waiting? You have the option to get into group chat calls with other employers while you are waiting. So please know you don't just have to sit there waiting for 15-20 minutes to talk with an employer. You can move around the platform and engage in the group chat. Not all employers are going to have both active, and so we'll be adding a document into the chat that's going to tell you who is doing the individual or what we would call the queue. So queue is another term for a line. So I'm going to use those words interchangeably, queue or line. But really what that means is a one-on-one conversation with an employer. And so it'll be one-on-one through a virtual platform. The group chat is going to be between you, and it could be, similar to what we're doing here, multiple other people that have joined the call. So I just want to make sure we know the difference between those two. But as I mentioned, not all employers are going to have those. You'll be able to see that by looking in the About section. That is where you'll see those two sections that are there. So jumping in a little bit more just to share. So I talked about option 1, option 2. So going in a little bit deeper, that one-on-one or joining the queue or the line, that specifically is going to be called the one-on-one chat, and it's between you and the employer. So I know that there's a lot on this page, but I'm going to kind of guide us as we go through. So again, we can see where it says Company A and it says join the queue. You're going to click that button, and that's going to get you in line. So if you want to think of it as when you get in line on your phone or when you're trying to wait for something, you will get in a line. That's what you're going to be doing for this career fair. You'll be speaking one-on-one with employers by joining the queue. Number 2, so what you may notice is like, hey, there's multiple employers. I can get in multiple lines. And that is true. You can get in up to 3 lines at a time. So what that means is I would pick your top 3 companies, click in and join their queue, and then as soon as they are ready for you, you will get a notification. And that notification looks like that section of number 2 that has the arrow. For example, this company is called the Flory Flower Company, and it says the Flory Flower Company is ready to chat. You will get that notification when the employer is ready to talk with you. And so what will happen is you will need to click Join Chat. If for some reason you don't click that, the employer is just going to be waiting. So I really want to make sure that you know that you need to click that Join Chat to engage in that one-on-one conversation with that employer. That's basically them saying, you're the next one in line, you're number 1, I want to talk with you. So then transitioning to number 3, you'll get the alert and you will click the Join Chat button that I just spoke about. And then this is the page that's going to come up. So you can see the Flory Flower Company. That's going to be the name of the company that you're talking with. You will see the name of the recruiter. So this is really great for you. So for example, let's say Jamie and I were having a conversation. Jamie is the company, or she's the company rep that's participating. I would see if Jamie uploaded a picture, I would see a picture of her, I would see her name, and then I may see her email address. So this page is really important because if I want to follow up with Jamie after the event and thank her for that phone call or for that video call, I would have her email address. You will also get a report of this after the event via your email if the employer has added in their email. But again, it's dependent on the employer. So we get into this section, you'll see the employer, the representative information, and then you're going to see where it says video chat instructions. And so you will need to click that link. That is the same way you got into this call today, by clicking a link and you just kind of jumped into the call. This is the exact same thing you're going to be doing in that end. Some of them are in Teams, some are in Zoom, and some are in other platforms. So there is going to be a difference, and we know that sometimes is a challenge to go from platform to platform. But just we like to let you know that in advance. A few tips related to the platforms. Please make sure that your Zoom is updated. So if you have not done that already, we'd recommend updating your Zoom. And then there are a few other platforms that have been used before. One's called Blue Jeans, and so just if you have them on your PC or your laptop or whatever you're using, that makes it a little bit easier sometimes, but not required by any means. But Blue Jeans, and there's another one called Ring Central. So you may see those. They're basically just additional types of platforms similar to Zoom and Teams. So don't be concerned if you see that come up as well. But traditionally, we're seeing Zoom and Teams as being the top two platforms that employers are using. I know that was a lot of information. I want to pause there for a second and see if folks have any questions specifically about the one-on-one chat. I do see a lot of folks with their hands up. So if you don't have a question, can you go ahead and lower your hand so I can just see if there are any folks with questions?
I have a question. Should I tell you or should I write it in the chat?
No, go ahead.
So if we're in the queue for multiple employers and then two employers are ready for us at the same time, how do we manage that?
That is a great question. So in theory, that will not happen. And I say in theory because if Jamie and I are an employer and we click at the same time, we've never had that happen, but I don't know what would happen in that instance. Usually what happens is that another employer is going to invite you to chat first, and then the second employer you're going to show is not available. And so that is traditionally what happens. We haven't had any folks that have kind of had that overlap. I'm curious to see now and what would happen, but traditionally, like you would be invited by another employer for that second one, your name will literally be grayed out and they will not be able to invite you. So you're not losing your spot in line. They may go to the next student, but when you do become available, you are the next student that they will talk with.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Isabel, do you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to put my hand down.
No problem. No problem. Okay. So again, that's the one-on-one. That's between you and just the employer. So this is an example of what it may look like. And so I share this just so you know that you may need to have a split screen. If you have two monitors, that can help, but it's not super necessary, just as long as you have one screen. And maybe on the left side, you have the Cougar Pathway screens. Remember, I just showed you this where it has the employer information. You can get the link to go into the platform. And then on the right-hand side would be that platform when it opens up. So this is helpful so that you can see the employer, you'll engage, you'll have your conversation, and then you will need to click the end chat. You'll need to leave your video call, so you'll need to leave the call on the right-hand side. You will also need to end the chat with that employer, because that'll allow you then to go to the next one and for you to become available for the next employer. This is just an example of what that may look like. We also share this with employers too, so they can kind of see and have a general idea of how this is going to work. Precious, I think you have a question?
Yes, I do. And hi, is there a time limit to how long we can talk to the employer?
That is a great question. Each employer is going to have a different time, but it may be 5, 10, or 15 minutes. So it's going to be in increments of 5. I do have one employer that chose to do 7 minutes. They thought 10 was too long, 5 was too short, so 7 seems to work for them. But to answer your question, Precious, at the top right hand of that screen in Cougar Pathway, you're going to see a time clock. Now, nothing happens. Like if there's 3 seconds left and you're like, I need to finish, nothing happens. There is not that pressure to finish. The clock is honestly more for the employer. So what I would encourage you to do is to be cognizant and aware of it. But if you are talking with an employer and it's going well, there is no need for you to say, oh, the clock's done, or oh, our time is over. That is on the employer. So please know that if you are having a great conversation and they are extending that time frame, that means they're interested in you, and I want to make sure that you get that time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? Again, we're still in the one-on-one chat. So this is one-on-one you with an employer. Okay, so transitioning now to the group, which is going to be similar to what we have here. This is really great. I will say one of the employers that is only doing this is going to be NASA. They prefer this method specifically for their engagement. They don't get as many students when they do one-on-one. So when they can do a group, they're able to engage with more students. And so on the handout that we'll make sure that we add into the chat, it shows specifically when they are having theirs. But it's going to be a very similar process. Again, we're back to this top section here near number 1, where it says group chat. You're going to click that box, and it's going to pull up a similar page. So this may look the same. We have Jack Flora here, which is our representative. It will be a different name potentially for that employer or whoever is facilitating that, but it's going to be the exact same. The difference here is you are not getting in a line. You are going to go directly into that video call as a group. So this is helpful when you're navigating, and again, as I mentioned, you can only get into 3 one-on-one chats. So if your wait time says 15-20 minutes, maybe you go ahead and jump into a group chat and see what that employer is doing. And so again, you'll click the group chat button and you'll go ahead and you'll see the video chat instructions that are listed here. You will click that. And again, the same thing is going to happen. You are going to be pulled into a video call similar to what you see here, but it'll be with you and multiple other people. And so one thing that I like to share at this point is you may be joining that kind of midway through a conversation. So I would kind of join, see what's going on in the room, and then maybe engage through the chat, introduce yourself, as long as it's appropriate. What we don't want is for you to jump into the call and take over or interrupt another student that may be asking a question. So if you join a group call, join, listen for a minute or two, kind of see what's going on in the room, and then engage. Unless an employer is just waiting for students to join, they may say, oh, Caitlin, thanks so much for joining. And then you're more than welcome to engage. But I would just say kind of feel out as soon as you jump into that call, there may be activity going on and you may need to want to just understand or kind of get that lay of the land and then engage, or they may just jump right in and start asking you questions. Let's see. So that is related to the group chat. So again, just to run back here, we have 2 options. You have the individual one-on-one in the group. Do I have any questions regarding those 2 things? That's really how you're engaging in the platform. You will be kind of navigating between those 2 while you're in there. Any questions? Yeah, Isabel, go ahead.
I have a quick question. You mentioned earlier that we need to be, or like turn on something that signifies that we're online.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we access that again?
Yeah, it will show up under your chat profile. So when you, let's go back here. When you have attended, you'll see the green section, and then that 1 hour before the event, that will show up here. But if not, it'll show up at 11. So as soon as the event starts, that's when you can actually get in. Prior to that, you can't see anything. You can't get in any lines. So it'll show up near that chat profile section, but it will only show up when the event is live.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Precious, go ahead.
Yes. Will the employer have access to our entire Cougar Pathway profile or just our resume?
Just your, that's a good question too. Just your resume and whatever is in your chat profile. So for example, this student, it's really me. It's my student account, but that's not really me. But it's a faux student. But this student's graduating in May of 2025. They're having a bachelor's degree, and it's in education, teaching, and learning. And so if that information is incorrect, you can edit it, but that is the only content that will be shared.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I do have a few tips for you in navigating during the event. And so these are things we just kind of want to share. The first one there we put in red because it is really important. If you have decided you don't want to use the group chats, you just want to sit and you want to wait for your one-on-ones, that is totally fine. Excuse me, but you need to move your mouse occasionally, because what's going to happen, unfortunately, is that if there is not activity within the platform, we've had some students that have gotten kicked out or logged off, and we don't want that to happen to you. So if it's every 5 minutes, I don't know the exact time of when it logs students off. It seemed to be different depending on the student, but I would just periodically move your mouse, go check your email, do something on your computer so that you stay logged into there. And if not, then just making sure that you're in Cougar Pathway and maybe you're checking things, you're going around and looking. But if you log out, excuse me, let me make sure I'm clarifying this. If you do not have any activity in Cougar Pathway, it will log you out. And so that means you need to be in there clicking around. I'm trying to think of another example of another platform that would be similar. Blackboard does the same thing to me. If I have it open and then after a while it logs me out as a security measure, the same thing is going to happen in Cougar Pathway. So if you're clicking something, you're checking out employers, you're looking at your profile, you need to do that in order to stay in the platform. What I've had some students share is like, well, what if I miss the employer? What if they invite me to chat? I do want to let you know that this, where it says the Flory Flower Company is ready to chat, that comes up at the top bar of Cougar Pathway. So you will see that show up if you are in Cougar Pathway. So that's why you'll need to stay in there and staying active. That's going to be the best way for you to make sure that you do not miss those calls. The second one is to be prepared to answer questions about yourself, which would include your major, why you're interested in that company, and then a little bit about your experience. Precious, did you have another question?
No, sorry, let me lower my hand.
No, you're fine. I just happened to look over and saw it, so no problem. So be prepared to answer questions about yourself. Jamie and Adalia are really great resources here. And so if you have questions, or maybe you need a little bit of somebody to pump you up or a cheerleader to encourage you, we will have a student help desk where you'll be able to log into. You can ask them for advice. They can run through, your pitch, or you can just kind of talk with them about what you're thinking. That's a really great resource. But just be prepared to answer some of these questions. The employers who you are waiting for will show up under upcoming chats. So just so you know, you'll be able to see that, and it has a list of the wait times. So there will be a little bit of a wait between employers. We do want to let you know that. But what that means is maybe 15, 20 minutes. We have seen some students need to wait an hour, and that is because there's a lot of students that are interested in that employer. So some advice that we would give would be get into 2 queues or 2 lines of folks that you're really interested in. And for that third one, be somebody that maybe doesn't have a long line that you can join and engage quickly and leave. So you're not stuck just in those 3. That would be a really great way to be able to do that. When you log into the platform, you will be able to see the upcoming chat feature. You'll be able to see those employers are listed after you've clicked them. As I mentioned, you can only get into 3 queues or 3 lines at a time. That's a really great way to maximize that experience. I believe it's Precious that asked this question about the timer. There is a timer, but it's really the employer's responsibility. So it's not yours, but you can be mindful of that. If some employers are very strict with it, you just want to make sure that you're trying to stay within that time frame. But if it does continue, that is a good sign. We want to make sure that you continue with that. A few more tips. Well, as I mentioned, while you're waiting in the one-on-one queue, if you go into the group chat and you're wanting to know whether they're going to notify you, similar, I just mentioned this, but this join chat option is going to come up and there will be an alert for you to join that chat. So don't feel like you can't, move around and check other things out in Cougar Pathway. It will come up. And when you're done, just making sure you're clicking end chat. I do want to let you know there is a notes feature. So if you really enjoyed a conversation with an employer, and maybe you want to just have some reflection on that, or you want to write down what you spoke about. So we know sometimes employers will ask about specific things on your resume, or they'll have questions for you. And maybe you want to write that down so you know in the thank you note or the thank you email, you can mention that, where I really enjoyed when you shared with me a little bit about how Houston is your hometown, something to those extent. You do have an option for notes. Your notes will not be shared with employers. They are private to you. I will let you know that our team can see them and we can pull reports. So we need to make sure that they are appropriate. I don't doubt that they won't be, but I just share that just so you know it won't be shared with an employer, but our team does have access to them. And with that, it's really for you to help kind of guide and so you can remember the conversations you've had. So you do not have to use it, but just know that it's a feature that's there just in case. If you do X out of Cougar Pathway, you will lose your place in line. So I would highly recommend not exiting out of Cougar Pathway. That is going to take you out of the platform and offline.